For some reason, I thought that selling my beloved sailboat Adventureborne was going to be fun. No idea where I got that ridiculous notion from. It was hell of the most unnecessary kind. Literally, not one person knew what they were doing throughout the entire 6-month-long process to sell that darned beloved boat. Oh yes, I'm including myself on that list. I'm the first one that didn't know what they were doing. But oh, by the time I got to the end, I could tell you a thing or two. And I will. Okay, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. Let's both just take a nice deep breath and a very large step back to where it all began 7 years ago. It began back in Alaska when I went all the way up there to go spearfishing after the king salmon world record. It was a hell of a trip and I burned myself out kayaking all over the place every day. It was a lot. And one day I was looking out across the fjords and I decided then and there that I was going to buy and live on a sailboat on the ocean so I could be right there for spearfishing and never need to paddle anywhere else again. I later drove down to Santa Cruz, California, where I joined a yacht club, learned how to sail, found an amazing mentor, did some serious sailing with him, and then eventually I sold everything I owned, downgraded to a little minivan, and traveled across the entire continental United States in search of the best sailboat I could find on the East Coast. I found the boat that would work for me, haggled hard for it, but stuck by everything I said. I bought it, sailed off with very little cruising knowledge, and slowly worked my way down the entire east coast of the United States, through the intercoastal waterway, doing some solo sailing, learning and growing as I went. I'd then upgrade the boat as I bounced between Florida and the Bahamas over a couple years. COVID was a particularly fun time for me because of the sailboat, learning how to kiteboard and getting into some really great spearfishing adventures while I was in the Bahamas, really some of the best times of my life. Eventually decided to continue on southward, went through the Dominican Republic, then to Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, then from St. Martin all the way down the entire Eastern Caribbean, as far south as Grenada, and then all the way back up and around. All the way back into the beautiful Bahamas, where I completed the biggest challenge to date, 115 days fully off-grid, living off the ocean, and living on Adventureborne, a life to the max of paradise and fun and adventure. I loved it. But I did feel like I was maxing out what the boat could do, and I was beginning to get ready for the next adventure. Having already owned the boat for 6.5 years, and having sailed more than 10,000 nautical miles, I was ready for the next thing. So I sailed north to the sailing capital of North Carolina, Oriental. And this is where the story really begins. There's an old and honestly annoying sailor saying that goes something like this: the two happiest days in a boater's life is the day they buy the boat and the day they sell the boat. Well, I don't agree with this. There certainly is some truth to it. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't happy the day I finally did manage to sell Adventureborne. I just personally believe the happiest day with my sailboat was the day that I used it. But in keeping with that saying, let's get into why I hated selling this boat so darn much, and what I would do differently next time. So in April, I put the boat up for sale. Not a bad time to sell a boat in that region, but I didn't really put a whole lot into it. I had put out a video on my YouTube channel that was actually the second, more updated video tour of the boat that showed you every nook and cranny possible. And that was good for some things, but not for others. I ended up getting some interest, but I also started the boat selling price at I think like $65,000 or like $70,000, which in hindsight may have been a bit much. But I will say it's pretty funny though. If you go to sell a boat, and I've known this from several other people, you will inevitably get a couple people that will message you just to berate you for whatever price you put the boat at. And I'm not kidding. I feel like these people have a day job where that's all they do. Like they work for a boat broker, they're just trying to drive prices down or something. Because I remember I put my boat up for sale just for the fun of it a few years back, and it was a good ad. But yeah, same thing. I feel like it was the exact same couple guys that gave me the exact same email. How dare you sell your boat for that price? I could buy 1,000,000 boats. You'd be lucky to get $25 and a spit shine for that boat, or something stupid like that. Yeah, that was like the intro to trying to sell the boat. Was your first couple emails or people just hating on you. But inevitably, you do get some interest. Though it might not always be the interest that you want. What I started finding out was that by selling my boat through just a video, only got people that were watching videos, not necessarily ready to buy. So I got a myriad of emails from people asking every single question, and I think I let my inbox go to about 50 before I decided to just compile all their questions and just put them all into one ad and just say, watch the video again. And I don't think I heard back from any of them, even though I definitely answered all their questions. So yeah, not a great start to selling a boat. Getting a little annoyed, but I wasn't worried about it. I felt like I had it all the time, but not a big deal. I gave myself 6 months to sell the boat, so I wasn't too worried. It was just the first month, no big deal. But after that first month wore off and I found out I didn't really have any serious buyers, I had to start changing tactics and get a little bit more realistic. I started looking at other boats that were for sale, what they had, what mine had, the differences in between, and I decided, you know what, nobody's going to pay extra just because I've got a little YouTube channel. So I took off, I think like $15,000, bringing it down somewhere around $45,000 or $50,000, and that didn't seem to change the interest on it because it was only coming from the one video. So then I was like, okay, time to pump it up a little bit. Then I went to Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, and this, folks, is where the real fun begins. I've actually compiled a list of just the general things people would say, so I'm going to go ahead and read that off my script. The first thing that would really bother me that people would do is when they would get past, a few questions or I give them my number to call, they would just talk, and they would talk, and they would talk. And I'm not talking about boats. I mean, they would talk about anything. And the funniest one I think I ever got was somebody talking about how he didn't think my boat was the right boat for him. And he kept going for like another 5 minutes uninterrupted after that. And then eventually I was like, well, great to talk to you, buddy. I gotta get going. I got somebody who wants to buy the boat on the other line. I kid you not, that's what I said to him. And he was like, oh, okay, no problem. And he was like, yeah, goodbye. Like, that was the level of people that I had to deal with. The next thing that I had to deal with that drove me absolutely insane was the endless amount of, not just on Facebook Marketplace, but through Craigslist, has it sold yet? Like, just, that was it, again and again and again. And it's funny because if you go through Facebook Marketplace for anything on there, you can just automatically message them, is it still available? Is it still available? And people love to just hit that. They love to not think, gee, if this ad is still up, this guy probably isn't enjoying all these random messages, it's probably still available. So they'll just do that. And it's hard to imagine that these people, this line of thinking, are the ones that are going to buy this boat and that you're going to have to deal with. And so the walls start closing in on you as you start realizing, like, I was getting people that were calling me who literally said they didn't even have the money to buy it. Like, they weren't trying to haggle me. They were just straight up saying, like, wow, I wish I could buy your boat. Like, it's really nice, which I will say was an improvement from what I'm assuming are 89-year-old hecklers on, Craigslist all day that are just thinking back to when a penny used to buy them a pair of shoes or something, that are now, just annoyed with inflation. But these people, it was nice, but it still just wasn't helping. So again, the inbox is getting full, but it's not getting you anywhere. You still have this boat that's not selling. And let's imagine I'm probably 2 months into this 6-month process now. I'm kind of getting a little annoyed. It's not bad yet, but I'm getting there. There was definitely a few people that stood out then that began to show me they were a little bit more serious. I could talk to them, and I started figuring out, like, okay, like, first question, do you have the money to buy this boat? Second question, what's your sailing experience? So I started learning how to filter through people, I think, a little bit more, and that certainly started to help. But then you would do that. You'd spend an hour on somebody. They would sound like they were the most interested person in the world, and then they just wouldn't show. They just, morning of, maybe an hour after, whatever it was, they just wouldn't show. And I think it was right about this point where I started to think to myself, I get why people give 10% of their boat's value to a boat broker. It's starting to make a little bit more sense now. I could see it. So that then taught me to start keeping my questions shorter and to the point, and then they would either come or they wouldn't. And I think it was again around this point, now like the 3-month mark out of 6 to try to sell this boat, that I ended up meeting a buddy of mine named Will down in Oriental, and he started to help me. And he had sold a lot of boats, and he definitely had more experience than me. And his big thing was, people are either going to buy the boat or they're not. It doesn't really matter so much what you tell them. They're either there and ready or they're not. But what I was finding was not a single person I was talking to had ever owned a sailboat before. I was exclusively, and spoiler alert, I would exclusively only get people who had almost no sailing experience or had certainly never had owned their own boat before. Like, there was a lot of questions they just didn't know to ask, so I would bring them up to them, like, oh, hey, like lifelines, like, you can see the rust here. And instead of thinking like, wow, great, he's like admitting these things to me so I know what to be ready for, they looked at it like, oh my God, there's something wrong with this boat. And so that's what he told me was the hardest part. He said that selling a boat to somebody who's green is so difficult because they're like a scared deer in the woods. Like, they hear a little twig snap. They see a rope that's like a little frayed. It's not like a halyard halfway up. They see just like some random line and they're like, oh no, that dock line is frayed. I don't know about this boat. And they spook off and they're gone. And this would end up becoming a reoccurring theme. Okay, so I've gotten my questions down, but I'm keeping them short and to the point. The next thing I had to start learning was to stop being so genuinely nice to every person that was taking hours out of my day. I think it was around this time, about 3.5 months in, that I had my first person seriously interested. It was actually a woman who was going to buy the boat solo. And I'll let you guys know that, she's probably in her 50s, and I had not met any solo sailing women in their 50s in my 6.5 years of sailing. So I thought that was kind of unique. I was like, oh wow, what were the odds? And she was nice. She brought like a sailing mentor with her, a sailing friend. I was like, okay, that's good. She also brought a boat surveyor with her, which I thought that was strange. Most people normally see the boat, decide if they want to pay for a surveyor, then they bring the surveyor. But I was like, whatever, we'll see how this goes. The woman was very nice. She really was. And she was a genuine fan of my page, so that was really good. She'd later take us all out to lunch, which was really nice as well. She was the only one who did that, which I really appreciated. But the boat surveyor, he had no clue what he was doing. Like, no clue at all. He hardly looked at things. He spent most of the time just hanging out with us, talking. Like, he didn't go through any of it, and like, towards the end of it, the boat surveyor was saying, he was like, this is a good boat? Yeah, no, totally good. And I know he was missing things. Like, he was not seeing rust where he should have. He was like not checking things. Like, he just wasn't going very deep. He would say, this boat is good for its intended purpose, or something like that. Like, it will, that's right, this boat will serve its intended purpose. He kept saying that. And I just thought that was very interesting. Like, yeah, it was very strange. Long story short, the boat broker does give the green light, but the woman gets cold feet. And so she backs out. But she was nice enough to call me. She didn't waste my time. She was genuinely nice about it. So I asked her, hey, can I get a copy of the surveyor's report? Normally speaking, that potential buyer would want to sell you that survey, or they might want to sell that survey to the next potential buyer. That's kind of how the game can be played, so that way you don't have to spend the extra money and time. And she told me that she would have happily given it to me, but the boat surveyor never gave it to her. And we ended up talking, back and forth. She ended up asking my advice on like some other stuff, because she ended up wanting to go with probably a boat like 10 feet shorter, which for your first boat does kind of make sense. But the surveyor never got it to her. So I was just starting to feel like, is the whole marine industry just bonkers? Like, what's going on? I've been off using the boat. I haven't actually been back, near land, dealing with all of like, I guess the financial side of a boat. And that's kind of what I started to realize, talking with my friends who haven't been off in La La Land like I'd been for months at a time, that now that money was involved, everybody gets real screwy. And that's what I was finding. So the cycle would continue with more people interested, asking if it was still available, talking about this boat or that boat that they're looking at, wasting my time. So I started really just trying to be as curt as possible on the phone, and just basically being like, okay, do you want to buy the boat or not? Like, I don't want to hear your story about how you have to fly across the country. And there was one guy who was going to buy and trailer it. There was one guy who was going to, first boat ever, he was just going to buy it, and I think he said he had 2 weeks to get it to Texas from North Carolina, which is not an impossible thing at all, but that's a haul. That is a haul with a sailboat, and you gotta go against the grain of the Gulf Stream at a certain point. I don't know, and I was like, do you want to go through Okeechobee? And he was like, I'm not sure. And at this point, I'm kind of willing to work with people if they're serious, so I had put on there like, hey, I'm open to helping you move the boat once you buy it. And people, when they saw that, I think just took that as like, oh yeah, we can just work, we can do whatever with this guy. My favorite one was this guy who on the phone said, nope, he had the money, totally good to go, everything was totally fine, he was super easy on the phone, shows up right on time, he was early in fact, we get on the boat, he kind of just like looked around like this, like he didn't like look at the boat, which got me a little worried, and then I'm like, hey man, do you want to sit down and we'll talk about any questions you got? And he pretty quickly went into, he goes, so I'm having a hard time getting a loan for the boat. I'm kind of like, great, so he doesn't have the money. This is about 4 months in. I want to get the boat sold. I'm starting to get a little anxious here. And I was willing to do owner financing. And I'll just cut to the chase. I am so happy it didn't work out. This guy went back and forth on everything, and eventually he just stopped responding, and we just didn't work on it anymore. And I am so happy that it didn't work through. Every single person I talked to said, do not do owner financing on a sailboat. There's a million things that could go wrong. So again, just super stressful the whole way through. So I think it's at this 4th and 5th months that I start to remember back to the boat broker who I bought the boat from. And the guy was real curt to me. I mean, he did not have a lot of time to waste. He got short with me more than a few times, and I feel like my questions were pretty pertinent. maybe they were a little green, but now I get it. Now I definitely get it. It's a lot of work selling a boat, and I definitely get why boat brokers get to charge what they do, because they got to go through all these yahoos who have no idea what they're doing, but they're more than ready to waste your time. Now, something I want to say at this point that's really interesting is nobody ever really tried to haggle me. Everybody just accepted the price, whatever it was. And I think at this point I was down to $40,000. Now, this included the dinghy, this included a ton of extras on the boat. I mean, I left the pots and pans, I left everything on the boat, you know, all the cookware, you know, sheets, pillows. Like, the boat was good to go. It really was in every way. And that's what I wanted to sell. I wanted to sell a boat that was just all together, ready to go, done. The outboard on the dinghy was even a Yamaha Enduro, 15 horsepower, 2-stroke. You can't even buy those in the US new. You have to get them used from another country. It's the only way. But they're the best dinghy motor. So there was a lot of value in the boat, in the dinghy, in the swim platform, the solar structure. The fact this boat could be off-grid indefinitely, pretty darn cool. But as I was finding out that first-time boat buyers, they don't really care about that stuff. They don't know how valuable that is yet. And they're a ways out from ever even using that. My boat, I was realizing, is going to sit in a marina for a good amount of time before it ever got out there. So I had to start thinking about it that way. And it was right about that time when this next buyer came along. I'm going to have to use a alias name for her because I'm not going to speak kindly. I try to speak kindly about people on my channel, if you guys have noticed. Nope. I'll just call it the woman. The woman just wasted so much time. Super green, super nervous about buying a boat, but initially, you know, showed progress, was ready to go. She did a $4,000 deposit on the boat, which is standard. You do a deposit of about 10% of the boat that shows you're committed to it. Then you go and get a surveyor, you do a survey with it. You know, you consider ahead of time the things that the seller already said might be wrong with it. You know, for example, the lifelines were getting kind of rusty inside the covering that was on them. So it's like, hey, easy replace there. She seemed totally good with everything. I helped her get this boat broker. And my mutual friend as well, he was like, oh yeah, really good boat broker. And then it turned out other friends of mine had used him. And when the big survey sea trial day finally came, he was vicious. He went through every inch of the boat, literally with a magnifying glass. And he was like, oh, standing rigging, all needs to be replaced. Oh, like the lifelines, like replace all that. Like, oh, I don't like this chain plate, might need to replace that. Like, he just started saying everything that could go wrong. Now, I don't know what was in this guy's final report, but yeah, it was pretty brutal. We ended up hauling the boat out, and that was cool, so that we were able to clear off the bottom, see if there was anything going on underneath the waterline there. And this definitely cost this potential buyer, like, I think it was nearly $1,000 just right there for the haul out and for the survey. But then we went off on the sea trial, and just all of that was honestly kind of traumatic. While we're underway, he's taking things apart. Then he tells me to go max speed and start doing, you know, evasive maneuvers to check the steerage, which I get. You want to make sure the boat's going to work. Totally get that. What I didn't know, though, was he had uncovered my steering quadrant, and I have things down there that could otherwise fall in. And he says just that to me afterwards. Like, he's like, oh no, he's like, I don't like this. He's like, you almost got your steering quadrant jammed up. And I'm thinking, like, because I can't see right behind me, I'm trying to steer the boat, and I'm thinking, well, that's strange, because it's never happened in like 6.5 years of sailing all over the place. My steering quadrant has never been jammed. Sure enough, he just didn't put the cover back on. And as well downstairs, he started tearing things apart, and he didn't put the covers back on. So he was definitely on a mission, and well, I can say it like this. I wish this guy had been my surveyor when I went to buy my boat, because I probably could have gotten it for half price. But as a seller, this guy was absolute hell to deal with. Well, I ended up giving the surveyor and this potential boat buyer woman some time so they could talk amongst themselves, you know, kind of gave them some space away from the boat. And when I came back to talk with her, she was actually still pretty optimistic about it. She said, like, yeah, you know, some things are going to have to be, you know, fixed and altered and changed, but I was willing to work with her on the price, so it really wasn't a big deal. It wasn't until like 3 days later when she called me and said, I don't want to buy the boat. She just fully pulled out. And my blood pressure went through the roof. I was so frustrated. It was probably a solid 2 weeks of dealing with this one person, building everything up, telling her where to get insurance, like helping her where she can put the boat or keep the boat in that slip. Like, there were so many little details that I was putting into this. It was so much work by the time this came through. In hindsight, if I had wanted to, I could have kept the deposit on the boat, but I just figured, you know what, let's just be done with it. I gave her the deposit back, no worries, no problem. The next day it occurred to me, hey, I'd love to have that surveyor's report so I can find out if there's anything that I can fix on the boat. And I messaged her about that. And you know what she said? She said, I talked to my family lawyer who said I shouldn't send you the survey. I can tell you that the standing rigging's old and the lifelines need to be replaced and like one or two other very, very minor things. And I was like, what in the world? Well, after talking to a few people, we kind of figured it out that there wasn't enough on that survey to get out of the deposit that she put on the boat. I absolutely legally could have kept that deposit, but I didn't. I just gave it back just immediately just to be done with it. Yeah, that was honestly pretty darn frustrating that then she wouldn't at least do me the kindness to at least send me the survey. I was kind of losing it. Now, thankfully, it was I think the day after she gave me the deposit, there was one more couple that wanted to come see the boat. And I just said, you know what, they seem super chill. On the phone, they were very nice to deal with. They didn't ask ridiculous questions. I figured, you know what, I'll show it to them. I ended up meeting with them in between the deposit and that horrific survey sea trial. And they were just super chill, relaxed people, a very nice couple. They had some sailing experience, but they'd never owned a boat. But I picked up pretty quick that by the questions that they were asking, and also I remember asking them what their sailing plan was, and the guy had a really good, just very simple laid out. He was like, yeah, we're going to spend this first month, you know, very, very close, maybe doing a little bit of refit. Then 3 months out, you know, we're going to want to start doing bigger sails, and then a year out this, and then 5 years out, we want to be in the Caribbean. And that occurred to me. I was like, okay, this guy's pretty serious. Fast forward, the deal falls through, and I kind of end up, I didn't realize that these were my people, but I still had like 4 or 5 people that I was kind of juggling. I had to message all these people back that I had said, people, hey, the sale didn't go through. That hurt a lot to have to do that. I was not thrilled at all. Because then there comes the question, well, why didn't it sell? And then you have to start explaining things, and it was going to be pretty frustrating. So this one couple in particular keeps kind of sticking around. They get back to me. I think it took them a couple weeks, but they were still interested. And it ended up coming down that he said one night that he wanted to put in a deposit on it. I had told him I'd sell it for $35,000 because of standing rigging and a few other minor things that I thought might be wrong from the survey, just to get the boat sold. $35,000 was my final. Like at that point, I was just better off putting it on the hard and waiting for a better boat market. But I decided, you know what, $35,000 is pretty reasonable. He agreed, and we agreed to a very, very simple, like, I'll never forget how he put it. It was like a as is, where is, and that he was going to write up the deposit form. And this is one of the lessons I want to impart on you guys if you're trying to sell your boat. Make your own deposit form. Don't make somebody else do it. Don't let somebody else do it. Because in his innocence and using ChatGPT, a lot of language got thrown into that first draft that he sent me that basically said that he could just walk away from the deal at any time. And I'm just having flashbacks to having all my time taken up on this one person and then it not going through and then still being stuck with the boat. So I was getting kind of annoyed, to be honest. I feel kind of bad because I was a little short with that guy that day. He was super chill about it. We ended up both going back and forth a few times. We rewrote it. They ended up coming to see the boat, I think, just about a week after we signed the deposit, and we did a sea trial. I did have one problem with the main halyard, but I already told him that was going to happen, and that was actually resolved like a couple days after the sale of the boat. And we ended up having their son with us, and I think we were supposed to be out for like 2 hours, but I kept him out for like 4 hours because it was just such a beautiful day out. We were really enjoying it, and honestly, I wanted to make sure the sale went through. So I was like, if the sailing portion is going well, let's just keep him on the boat and just keep relaxing, enjoying. So it was a super relaxing day. Going in and out of the slip was no problem. I was kind of teaching them things here and there. Part of the way I wanted to sell this boat, not so much as a selling tactic, but just genuinely to pass the boat on, was I really wanted to teach the next buyer how to use a boat in its completion. And I have a whole video that I have to still edit up that you guys can watch soon. But basically that was a big part. They said, hey, like, the sooner you guys buy the boat, the more time I have to teach you how to use the boat. And that ended up working out really well. We ended up closing on the boat, where I found out, honestly, and I hate to admit this, not all my paperwork was all together, but it wasn't a big deal at the end. We were able to, within a couple hours, straighten everything out and had a legal sale of the boat. Everything went really well. They got a new title in the mail from North Carolina, so that was it. Everything finally was over. I would spend the next, I think, like 2 or 3 days off and on with them. I think I did 2 full days on the boat with them, teaching them every square inch of the boat. And that was kind of good to say goodbye to the boat, I gotta say. Like, there definitely is, I don't want to say regrets, but, nostalgia as I look back on Adventureborne. But when I came to sell the boat, I was ready to sell the boat. I was ready to be done. So So all totaled, it took me every bit of 6 months to sell the boat. The last 2 months in particular, I got serious about selling it. And I did notice probably within about that first serious month, I was able to get the buyer lined up and get things finished and sorted. But it was so stressful throughout it. So I quickly want to discuss with you guys a few things that'll hopefully help you if you're buying or selling a boat. And the first one on this is why it was so terrible to sell my boat. The first thing I really do believe is it's a terrible boat market. A lot of people agree with you. Being a seller, it's a horrible time. And a lot of this, I think, comes back to COVID-19. COVID happened, and then it was over, and everybody wanted to be out. They wish they had owned a sailboat. I could have gotten probably $70,000 for my sailboat back then, and part of me is, kicking myself, but had some great adventures. So the market is absolutely terrible. There's a lot of talk of heading towards a financial crisis soon, so that's not helping people either. As my good friend Will put it, nobody needs a sailboat, not yet at least. I loved Adventureborne because it was really ready for the apocalypse. It was my vacation plan and my apocalypse plan all rolled up in one, and that's pretty sweet, but not everybody values it the same. Another reason why it didn't sell so well is, honestly, and I hate to say this, it's a monohull. It's not a catamaran. Catamarans still are selling very well. Most people I'm finding that want to go out on the water, they really want to be on the catamaran. It's easier. You have all this extra space. You have 2 motors so you can swivel the boat around. Getting in and out of docks are easier because of that. But at the end of the day, you have more living space, you have more deck space, and the biggest one, stability. You're not rocking and rolling all the time. That is something I genuinely did not like about living on a monohull. I was never a huge fan of the boat rocking back and forth, like maybe a little bit when I was sleeping, but honestly, I loved the nights when the boat didn't rock at all and I was in a really good anchorage. For that reason, my next boat has to be one with a shallow draft that can get me into all these really great nooks and cranny anchorages. But as far as trying to sell a boat goes right now, not being a catamaran, oof. The financial market, oof. And then the biggest one is just all those people from COVID bought a boat and then they tried to sell a boat about this time when they realized the lifestyle wasn't right for them. So that's what it comes down to. Alright, real quick, I've got 9 lessons that I learned when I went to sell my boat. Going down the list, first one is detailed ad with plenty of pictures and a video tour. I really didn't do great on the pictures. I had pretty much no pictures of the interior, and that probably would have helped. Thankfully, I did a really good boat tour. As you guys might know from watching my channel, I do a ton of boat tours. I got a bunch more I really need to edit. I love doing them. I think they're super fun to see the different way different boats are laid out. And that does a really good job for a buyer to be able to look and know exactly what the boat's like. Because to be fair, as frustrating as this was for the seller, I know there's been plenty of buyers out there that have run into just cranky old sailboat captains that are getting rid of their, honestly, derelict boats and they're trying to get $500,000 for them. So there definitely is a yin and a yang to that. Number 2, assess the current market value of the boat. I'll be honest with you, it was a 1984 Beneteau Ideally 11.5 meters. Not the bigger ones, not the smallest one, but 11.5. So 38-foot monohull from the year 1984. That's an older boat. I think it's a great boat. I added a lot of things to it, but still. I think that if the market had been better, I probably could have swung more for $50,000. In hindsight, I actually wish I was down in Florida instead of Oriental. Oriental didn't feel like a great place to sell, honestly. I thought it would have been, but it just didn't really seem like a good place. But yeah, I would say though, look at what other similar models are going for. And I did find at one point somebody had one for sale for like $10,000 or $11,000. Given there were some things wrong with it, and it was inland, so you'd have to trailer it, so it wasn't like perfect. But generally speaking, yeah, I mean, I think as far as a selling price, like what you'd actually get for it, $35,000 was actually a pretty good price for me. Remember, I bought the boat for $23,000, but funny enough, if you adjust that for inflation, which I did, I think it comes to like $32,000. So I can say that I made a little money on the boat. If you factor in how many years I was on the boat, rent that I never paid, that would certainly offset it. But then if you also put back onto it upgrades I made to it, I really did darn near everything myself, so that really helped. But yeah, I mean, if you're trying to sell your boat, assess the current market value of that boat, of how others are trying to sell, and also seeing how long they're on the market at that price. Number 3, fix things, don't be lazy. The boat wasn't as in good condition as it should have been. I don't think I did a true deep clean of the entire boat until the last potential buyers that ended up buying it. I could have been a little bit better in cleaning things. There was a few more things on the boat that maybe I could have fixed, but I just didn't feel like doing it, honestly. I was kind of lazy like that. I was really ready to be out and away from the boat and on to the next thing. And next I'm going to discuss some buyer advice, and that'll come in handy in a minute. Number 4, clean the boat thoroughly. I mean, I went through the bilge, like I went through everything, but I didn't do that for the first potential buyer, and that may be something that affects it. I think it's a pretty well-known thing that, especially, if they're bringing, their wife or girlfriend, whatever it might be, is going to be with them on the boat, the interior better look good because that's what they're going to be living in. Guys are going to be looking at something different than girls would be, so kind of keep that in mind. But no matter what, you want the boat to look nice, to smell nice, and to be in showroom condition. Number 5, this might be more specific to me, but talk less to the buyer. Keep things short and to the point. I found often that I was talking about problems and how to remedy them, or how I had already fixed a problem on the boat, and to me that's what I would want to hear. I'd want to hear how somebody was on top of everything. But I think especially for first-time boat buyers, they just want to look at the boat as just ready to go and not understand how there'll be things that don't quite work right, or might even be broken, because that's boat life, but the boat's still ready to go. So just talk less, keep it real simple, straight to the point. As my friend will say, don't break their fantasy. Don't ruin their fantasy. It's a boat. It's ready to go. Don't complicate it. Nobody wants these complicated sailing fantasies. They want to just get up and go. Number 6, this was super specific to me, is don't be too nice. Don't go too far out of your way and be too accommodating. I genuinely feel like I got too used to being out on the ocean with other sailors, where we're not dealing with money back and forth. We're dealing with being there for each other when the other one needs it, helping the other one, sharing meals, giving them boat parts or whatever it would be. But then when it comes down to especially non-boat people, they're in it to be cutthroat. They're in it to get the best deal they can. And I feel like I kind of put too much of myself out there. Number 7, this is going to make me sound like a terrible person. Tell the buyer that they don't need a survey or a haul out. With that one woman, I could have told her that she didn't need a haul out or a survey, and she would have believed me. It would have saved her money. I made sure to go through all the proper steps with her so she knew what was the correct way to go about doing things. I don't know, I feel like I've got some integrity, or I just feel like maybe I love the sailing community as a whole, and I just want to do my part to not be like that bad guy that sold a lemon boat. So I told her, and helped her, and in hindsight, that cost me a lot of time. It cost her some money as well, but she definitely learned a lot more about boats because of that. But yeah, no, if somebody doesn't want to get a survey, or they're on the fence, don't get a survey if you're trying to sell your boat. Like, don't let them, don't encourage them to do it. Surveyors will find things wrong. Like, it doesn't matter. You could put them on a brand new boat. This is a known thing in the sailing world. I mean, heck, look at the La Vagabond boat. Like, that thing set sail, and how many hundreds of people were looking that thing over, and it broke when they went out and used it. Like, I mean, what is it, the Gone with the Wind's boat? Like, brand new catamaran. How did that go? Oh yeah, that Tula's Endless Summer, they said a few things they did not like that were breaking on their catamaran too. So this is just kind of how it goes. There's always something broken on the boat. Don't give them more reasons to find more things. Number 8, write up a good deposit contract that says, hey, things were stated that are wrong if there's nothing critical to the boat. If a through hole isn't leaking or like popping out, if the engine's not about to explode, if the mast isn't about to come down, if it's not systems critical on there, then they lose their deposit. Don't waste your time with people. Tire kickers, that's what it ended up being. It's just months and months of tire kickers for me, and it wastes a lot of your time. So I would say write up a really good deposit contract. When I went to put a deposit on my boat, the boat broker, he had no time for it. He was just like, that's exactly what he said to me. It was like, if the boat, if something catastrophic happens, like, sure, you can get your deposit back, or what you normally do is you negotiate with the seller. I was fully ready to negotiate with the woman, actually, and what's funny is, I didn't say this before, but what's really funny is, I was willing to go down to $30,000 for her. So I did technically make a bit more money, although it was a lot more stress. I was willing to negotiate quite a bit with that, depending on what the surveyor had said, though I never found out. So number 8, make a good contract so that way they know when they put the deposit down, they're serious, because until that point, they have no skin in the game. And if you're the only one with skin in the game, you have a boat that's depreciating in value, you have a slip that you have to be paying for, you have to maintain things on the boat, something could happen to it, you have to be paying insurance. There's a lot that goes into actually owning the boat. The seller, until that point, they're just walking around. They're just happy-go-lucky. Like, they don't care. So get a good deposit form down and get that 10% deposit so they have skin in the game. So it's kind of funny. Number 9, the last one here, from advice from my friend Will. Remember, no one needs to buy a sailboat. They cost money once you own them, whether you use them or not. That is the big one. If you find yourself frustrated like me, and I've seen it from other people, content creators and just regular people, complaining on social media about selling boats because it is a frustrating process, just remember, nobody needs it. Nobody needs the boat. And if I had to put 10 on there, I'd put the boat on the hard and sell it as is where is, so that way it's not depreciating as much. That would be the 10th one, but I think you get the point. Alright, so here's just 4 quick tidbits of advice for those of you that are interested in buying a boat. Number 1, don't waste their time. Like, be direct, know what you're looking for. You should have a well filled out ad that you're looking at, and if you don't, be like, hey, like, answer me these questions, or just talk to them on the phone. Some people are selling boats, but they're not like really trying to sell boats. They're just kind of putting it out there, and they're not putting much effort into it. I don't know what the opposite of a tire kicker would be, but that would be it, the seller version of a tire kicker. Don't waste your time with those. Like, deal with people that are seriously trying to sell the boat, that are motivated. Number 2, quickly figure out a way into the conversation state that you do have the money to buy a boat and that you're ready to buy a boat. I remember talking to some surveyors when I remember talking to some boat brokers when I was looking to buy a boat, and a few of them were like super direct. They're like, do you have the money for this boat? It was like the first thing they said to me. Like, they didn't even say hi. They were like, that was the very first thing. So I totally get that. So stating that and helping to take some of the stress away means that you will stand out from the other tire kickers, and they'll want to deal with you more. Number 3, if you do have the knowledge and know-how, you don't necessarily need a survey. However, anything over 40,000, maybe 35,000, I would get a survey on, because it would definitely save you a lot. If you don't know what you're doing, you definitely should get a survey, especially if it's a free boat. Free boats have cost people more money, I think, than anything else. That being said, once you do have a survey, that usually gives you some things to knock the price down with. Be careful with the language that's written on the deposit form, the deposit contract, because you are, responsible for that. And yes, you can take them to court for it, but that's a difficult process. So if you can, on your first time taking a look at the boat, show that you're interested, show that you're motivated, show that how quickly you're willing to just get this boat off their hands. That's really what it is. It's stressful to keep owning the boat. You can kind of like alleviate that pain by saying like, oh, I'll buy the boat. Just do this. Hold a check out if you can. I would do that. Man, like, pre-write a bank check that says the amount of money. Like, you could knock off more than half the price. If I look back, the boat I bought, Adventureborne, was originally for sale for I think like 46 or 48,000, and I knocked him down to 23,000. Now, that was a big haggle, and I had another haggle on top of that, which was I think 19,000 as is where is. And I'm really happy we didn't do that, honestly, but to have somebody say like, hey, here's a price you don't like, but there's no more stress on your part. I just write the check, we sign things, it's no longer a problem. You'd be surprised how many people would go for that. And number 4, once again, is remember, nobody needs a boat. But once you own them, they cost you money whether you use them or not. So it's painful to hold on to that boat. I think it kind of just goes back to like, you can help alleviate all that pressure and everything else. It's pretty rare that somebody is, maybe say living on their boat full time and trying to sell it. Normally they're ready to move on with the next phase of their life if they were living on the boat full time, but a lot of people own houses on top of boats, so it really depends on the situation, but I think learning about the seller and what type of a situation they're in makes a big difference. I did a lot of research of talking around town about people that might know the guy that owned my boat. I did a lot of research before I bought my boat on the guy that owned it. Found out a lot of things about him and why he was trying to sell the boat. And that's a big thing. That's totally okay to ask. Like, hey, why are you selling this boat? What's going on? Where are you at in life? And use that into your advantage. Alright, and that wraps it up. I appreciate you guys listening to probably mostly just me complaining, but I hope you found some useful tidbits, or at least were entertained along the way here. For those of you that are selling a boat out there, I wish you all the best of luck. And for those of you that are thinking about buying a sailboat out there, just please be serious about it. Don't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Don't waste everybody's time. It's very, very frustrating. It really is. That's all I have to say is I would not have minded, and that's what I thought I was going to experience, was somebody haggling me, over nickels and dimes, but instead I found it was more people that were shy, that weren't really ready to buy a boat, it seemed. So be out there, be ready. It is an amazing adventure, but for sure, once you buy a boat, very few boats out there that can do any sort of actual ocean distance, especially overnight, multi-day, or be liveaboards, can also be trailered. And that's a unique thing to know, that if they can't be trailered, it means they have to be anchored, which is a little too dangerous to leave on its own, moored, which still comes with all of its own, drawbacks, but you have to pay for that, at a dock, which costs the most money, or at a boatyard, which still also costs money. So that's what you have to deal with when you sell a boat, but there has to be some sort of a drawback, because living on a boat really was the best adventures I've had in my life so far. And for those of you wondering, because a lot of people have been asking, yes, I will be buying another boat soon. I have a whole plan set up on that. It's called the UMAR project. You can take a look right here, get a little bit of an idea for it, pause the video, read it. Hopefully it doesn't cause a bunch of people to buy McGregor's, because I'm going to have my eye out soon. So with that, I'll see you guys on the next adventure. Cheers. Thanks for joining me on this adventure. I hope you feel inspired to begin adventures of your own. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. For an exclusive, in-depth look at this adventure lifestyle, and to further support my channel, become a member of my Patreon crew. Link in the description. I'll see you on the next adventure.